Al, you ready? Good evening. Welcome to the October 22nd, 2019 special meeting of Pequannock Township Council. Ms. Marsh.
In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of the special meeting was filed in the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and on the Township website, and mailed to all persons requesting notice in accordance with Township policy. 48-hour notice of this meeting was also transmitted via fax or email to the Suburban Trends, Daily Record, and the Record newspapers. Notice of this meeting was included in the statements. Notice of this meeting included statements that the purpose of this meeting is to hold a discussion about sewer rates and that no formal action will be taken.
The clerk will please call the roll.
Mrs. Florence Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Hurd is absent. Mr. Phelan?
Yeah.
Mrs. Russell?
Here.
Mayor Cole?
Here. All right, this is a special meeting to discuss sewer rates. Mr. Brewer, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to just announce for the record that with us we have Julie Kuplik, the Township's Chief Financial Officer and Director of Finance, as well as Valerie Dolan, who is a partner with Nisavachi & Company, who is the Township's auditors. As the Council may be aware from conversations that initiated back in February of 2019, the sewer utility was challenged financially. In 2018, a significant portion of non-reoccurring revenue was used in an effort to balance the budget. In 2019, it was discovered that a similar amount, though slightly less, would also need to be used to balance the 2019 sewer utility budget. At that time, a rate study was anticipated and discussed. The rate study was undertaken beginning in the summer, and previously we had conversations about the connection fee, and the consensus of the council at that time was to increase the connection fee from the current amount of $1,119 per EDU to $3,500 per EDU in January of 2020. The significant issue that needs to be discussed is the sewer rents. Previously, it was forecast that we were going to have a conversation and an analysis was provided to council, but it was discovered that there were about $1.25 million of deferred charges, the oldest of which dating back to 2006, the youngest 2014, that hadn't been appropriately captured in the analysis. Based upon the complexity of debt of that age, I decided candidly that the complexity of this, because of what could be issued as debt, what couldn't be issued as debt, what options that might be before us, was such that we needed to bring in outside support. So at that time, although Ms. Dolan had been in a capacity of reviewing and providing guidance to Julie and me, she hadn't been directly involved. So at that time, we brought in Ms. Dolan to get heavily involved. We also included Matthew Jessup, who is the Township's bond counsel with McManam in Scotland, and we also used Heather Lepazzer from NW Financial, who serves as the Township's financial advisor. Her role is really to dive into the bond markets to determine what costs would be with different schedules for the payment of debt service and approaching different things. So after a lot of conversation from pulling that discussion back from the council, we were able to put together a package which was disseminated previously in the council as before you. Looks very much similar to the previous dissemination, except the numbers are different. And in an effort to provide a full and accurate description, I've asked Ms. Dolan to join us.
Okay, so I will ask the question to both of them. Where is the user adjuster charge that you get back from the TVSA included in these numbers? I believe this year you're going to get $360,000 back from the TVSA.
It's just in your application. TVSA?
Mm-hmm. There's an adjustment fee. We bumped our number up to 1.0 million gallons or whatever, however it goes, which means we get a, for lack of a better word, rebate.
Correct.
We're actually paying for more than we're actually using at this present moment. So there's money that flows back to the township, which will probably happen somewhere around December or January. Did you take any of that into this account?
And no. just for the benefit of the record, in 2018 we were anticipating some and didn't get any.
Okay, this year you will.
So,
which is why we did not include it in our analysis. For the reason is that it wasn't guaranteed. We didn't get anything in 2018, and I was trying to make sure that I didn't want to put you in a position where we were relying on something that didn't come.
I think what we did was we changed our usage from 0.95 to 1.0.
Okay.
Which means we're now paying for more usage than we're actually using, which means it'll be a rebate back to us. I happened to look at Lincoln Park's cost to their residents for their sewer is very inexpensive. However, they're going to end up paying $400,000 or $500,000 back to the TVSA because they're using more than what they budgeted.
They're using more than they.
So I just wanted to get an idea on that. The other thing that I'm a little concerned about is we're going to take on another new project with another couple of million, whatever it's going to cost us. Are we really ready to do something like that with this? This is ugly, guys.
Right, it really
So is the project you're referring to Route 23?
Yes, I hate to say this,
Make it a
but in the
person.
last year, we bumped up the water price, we bumped up now it's going to be the sewer, and I guarantee when we go to do the property taxes this year, that's going to go up significantly, simply because of the health.
If I can field the question on the Route 23 project, Councilman. So the project has to happen.
No, it doesn't have to happen.
No, it doesn't.
If you would allow me to finish the sentence, I'll
Okay.
explain why. The debt was already issued for the project, so we've already borrowed the money.
So we already borrowed the money, so we can't give the money back and say we don't want to pay any more debt on that. Is that a true statement or not?
I don't believe there's any way to cancel the project once there's already been debt issued.
But if I take out a loan on my house and I take a mortgage for $250,000 and the next day I say, well, you know what, I don't want that house anymore, or I don't want that, I can't pay that $250 back or whatever, here's your money back?
How much money have we spent on engineering for the 23 project?
Approximately $300,000.
What do we?
Well, we took out $6 million, correct?
There was approximately $6 million authorized.
6.1.
And
6-1 authorized.
$4 million was
Sold in the bond
sold at the
sale.
bonds.
And the other 2.1 is in our projections as in note sale.
Yes, and although the project hasn't been initiated, the cash is currently all over various places in interfunds covering debts on other issues.
That's ugly.
So I guess the real question we could ask and we could field to Matt is if in fact you were to call back that piece, I don't know when the callback period is on that, and I don't think you can pay back a portion of the note, the bonds that were taken out. You took out the $4 million. You already sold the bonds for that project. So the reality is the reality of why we're looking at the rate between 19 and 20 is that debt payment is actually online now. You're actually
And we haven't
making,
even put a shovel
you haven't
in the
put a
ground.
shovel in the ground.
We haven't
And
even
that money
acquired all the
is being
necessary
paid back
easements.
starting in 19.
We walked ourselves into this problem as far as I'm concerned. If we, it just doesn't make sense. We already borrowed the money, but by the way, we're not really doing anything for, what, another 2 years? Would you guess 3?
My goal would be to have a shovel in the ground, or at least a bid out in the summer of next year.
And where does economy of scale fit into this whole thing? As we were told, as we add more and more houses to the sewer system, we're going to get more, as you guys call it, rent, I call it income, coming into the sewer authority. Did you take any of that into consideration?
Yes, if in the revenue numbers, we factored in new users on the project for Village that's come in, and we factored in starting in, it is 2021, double check my year, for 2022 for approximately the new users coming in for Route 23. So we're factoring
So
those in the revenue.
$126,000.
It's $140,000 of revenue we're anticipating in 2022 coming in for those users that will be connected on the Route 23 project. But you won't see that revenue coming in until 2022, based on Adam's timing of when he thinks the
Right,
project will be
I don't want to sound...
No,
like
yes.
I'm really giving you a hard time, because I'm not. I'm just explaining the reality of this is that in the last year, we have increased everything, and I know when we get to the property taxes, I can already hear it that, well, you know, we have a new insurance company, and we have to make up all that money.
So the challenge is we've spent a lot of money. There's approximately $22 million of debt on a sewer utility, which has a $4.5 million operating budget, and $6.1 million, as was previously discussed, was issued for the projects for the water utility. So unfortunately, if we spend a lot of money, we have to pay back a lot of money.
You know who I say that to? My wife all the time.
It is an unfortunate reality, and the task that the group set forth was to stabilize things moving forward. Historically, a review of the sewer utility, it's never been truly stable.
And I understand that. We were told that, this is what we were told a couple of years ago. Economy of scales is going to kick in and we'll be okay. But that didn't happen, and then we went out and took another big bond out to do the Route 23 sewer. I'm just curious on what's the payback on that? Over how many years do we get the money back? When I say money back, we put sewers in and people are paying.
Well, I mean, just using quick and dirty back of napkin math, if it's a $6 million project and you're bringing $140,000 in a year in revenues, your ROI is pretty long.
Yeah. And how much do we wind up losing on the village sewer project that we had to...
Total cost
that
of the
we had
village
to
was
eat?
approximately $16 million. We're going to be assessing approximately $5.
So, and how much did we, on all the people that fought us on that? Was that about three?
That's factored into that 5
About
40
44
years to pay
million,
it
5
back if
million?
you guys are interested. 40 years.
Yeah, that's factored into the analysis, and that's
And-
approximately $1 million.
And so we can't say we've decided not to do 23 sewer project? You can't do that?
Ironically, I said something very similar when the items were initially presented to me in a meeting, and based upon the advice that was, I mean, we can go to bond counsel and see, is there a way, and what is the way, give us the roadmap.
Right.
And we can see if that exists. But I just want to make sure that there's a clear understanding. It's not like there's $4 million sitting in a bank account that we can just give back. That money has been used to cover the home elevation projects from FEMA to balance, so we don't issue debt and have pots of money sitting there. It's being used in other places. So if we give that money back, that's going to have an unintended consequence of a need for debt for other areas.
So if I lend you $6 million...
Can we research that?
Wait.
Go ahead.
Well, you said you
So if
could
I lend
ask
you $6
about
million, can you pay
quality.
that?
That would be a true question for me.
Yeah.
Bob, what is your opinion?
If I can get it back from everywhere else.
I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure you've sold it. It's locked in. You don't have the option, unlike a
I'm pretty sure
note.
you're right.
But I would definitely confirm that with Matt to be sure completely. It's not like it was in a note. If it was in a note, the note comes due and you just don't reissue the note, it falls back and gets canceled. But when the bonds were sold.
People are expecting to make interest on
Bond,
those.
yes,
Oh,
bond, your buyers of your bonds.
But
are
sometimes
expecting.
bonds are written that they're callable.
That's what I need to find out, is how that was written and what the callable is. It might be 10 years out on that bond sale.
Okay, so
But
what
it's
happens-
worth of a question to Matt. It's
Okay,
worth
so
that.
let me paint this other scenario. So I also see we took this money out and we put the shovel in the ground, and suddenly we're doing change orders because we didn't budget enough for this. This is just going to get uglier and uglier as we go along. So everybody's aware it's going to take 40 years to pay back that $6 million at $149,000 rent, income, whatever you want to call it. It's just ugly.
Right.
It's just ugly.
Have we even gotten all the approvals, all the people to say yes on that?
No, we are still outstanding a number of easements. We've drastically reduced. There were approximately
Right.
24 a year ago. We're down to about 6.
But still, that could hold us up.
But we have one
Another
property
5
owner
years.
that's working to perfect the subdivision so he can issue us the easement. That's not going to happen until November.
We also have a couple of, isn't there still some properties on 23 that there's a whole issue with even finishing the project with them or something, with the sewers? You know,
Not going north.
I don't
Not
I
the-
have to know more specifics
Oh,
to be able to
okay.
answer.
I thought you said there was a number of properties there were still issues with.
Within the village project.
Yeah, but not the other. Okay.
Yeah. When were the bonds sold?
2017.
So again, it's just a very ugly scenario, no matter
Sure
how you
is.
look at it.
Correct.
It's going to get to the point where it's going to be, do you live in this town? I know Julie does.
I do not.
Okay, it's going to get very expensive to live here in the next couple of years. I mean, ugly expensive.
I agree.
And just for the benefit of the record, there was an analysis on rates done in 2016, which called for increases in rates in 17, 18, 19, and 20. The
And
rate,
we were advised by, at that time, township manager, that economy of scales was going to kick in. I'm telling you.
I just know what's in the records. And the rate was increased in 17, but it hadn't been increased otherwise. Those projections, which didn't have definitive debt service numbers and did not account for the deferred charges that had to be captured, had us at a rate of $880 per year in 2020. So I know the rate of $988 a year is higher than that, but there was a significant increase that was anticipated based upon the issuance of the debt back in 2016.
So, Julie, just so you're aware, probably $360,000 back from TVSA this year.
Which is
I don't know
how much is going to help us.
So we lower everything by $1.
drop in the bucket.
And as was discussed during the budget process in 2019, we've basically stripped as much as possible out of the sewer utility budget. We've used a significant amount of any fund balance that exists. So,
There is no
the quote-unquote best practices you have in terms of maintenance of fund balance and other dynamics are out the window because we're in survival mode. It's almost like the economic downturn of 2007, 8, 9, when the budgets in the public sector were, people were looking at $200,000, $300,000 fund balances, when a number of $3 million is a safer number.
The 5 of us knew about 2019. Did the 4 of us know that there was $500 and some odd thousand taken out of reserves to balance the sewer
I don't know.
in 2018?
It must have went over my head.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember it either.
It must have went over.
Yeah, I mean,
That was
Is
money
that-
that came in, that reserve money was the money that came in when we sold the bonds. There was some additional monies that came in on the bonds and the premium, and that's what that money was, that additional reserve. So it was held, and it was put in a reserve to pay debt service when the 19 budget was built. It was built to put that into a line of revenue in that year, to start that first year because the debt service was coming online, with the notion that the reality of most of that was really the village. Village sewer is really the bigger of the two issues, not so much on 23, is that the village sewer assessments are nowhere near covering the cost of village sewer.
Right.
No, not even close.
Not even close.
Which is then we go back to reassessing.
Right.
But that
It was our
was-
issue to begin with.
Right.
Just to refresh my memory, that we can only legally charge up to 20% of what it costs us to build out the sewer for their original connection fee?
No. The amount to be assessed can't exceed the improvement to the property value. But just to bear in mind, the village area project cost $16 million, roughly. The original ordinances had a maximum amount to be assessed of 7.2.
7.2.
So even if the full 7.2 were collected, you're still well short of $16 million.
Okay, we decided to sewer the village because of the flooding problem.
Right.
That was the original,
The main reason.
The health.
right,
The health of, right.
and I understand that. And then we bid off Route 23, which just adds insult to injury.
Well, I think that was more of, we're already doing the village. Now, how do we make an investment in town and make our properties on 23 more valuable?
You're not going to get money back from this, you're not going to get more taxes, you're not going to get anything from this.
How is this going to affect the 23 sewering? What we haven't done yet?
Well, we had that conversation just before you
We
walked in.
got $2.7 million left to do
It
that.
will take us 40
Well,
years to pay off the
no, you have your full 6 million, you have your money, you have the money sitting there to still do that project. It's just, right now, the debt has come online for 2/3 of the project, for which no revenue is streaming
Right,
into.
we have to pay
You have to pay the debt
interest.
service on the interest and the debt service payment on a project for which no revenue stream is coming in.
Right, where's that $6 million sitting?
It's in the ordinance as an available balance.
It's in the ordinance, so it's not like something I could,
No, there's an ordinance balance
Yes,
that's carrying that says
but I can't touch that $6 million.
you can't, until we start cutting the purchase orders, or we award that contract and that.
So let me ask you a question then. So is this is an interesting thing. So we're not paying against the actual principal, we're just paying the debt service and the interest, correct?
No, because you sold the bonds, you're paying the principal portion of it back.
Oh, we are paying.
Because you sold the bonds. Had you been in the note market for that piece, yes, you probably would be you'd be looking at your first year of the third year of the first year of a required pay down
Right.
on the note.
Right.
But
okay.
because you're in the bond market,
Right.
you're locked in.
We have a piece of paper that says we can borrow $6 million.
Yeah.
We're paying against that $6 million, but we don't have that $6 million.
And that's built into the bonds that we sold, exactly. So you're looking at, that are going to be paid off in 2035, is those.
But that portion, just to bring me back up to speed, that's just for Route 23 that we haven't even
Started.
It's
started the
23.
contract and...
It's Route 23, it's Village.
So it is
It's
a portion of the
large
Village.
portion of the Village. The Village project was about 16 million. We ended up, 2 million of it never was funded yet, so you're sitting,
Is that because we went
It's
over,
most,
or?
no, it just didn't. There was about $500,000 that had never been issued on the Village, so most of that is Village to cover the cost for the Village, plus some other projects that you did. And that's when we started to look at it, that I realized that, I know Adam's referred to it a couple times as the deferred charges piece. There's another ordinance that goes back to 2006. And that was a capacity ordinance of a purchase of some additional capacity from the TVSA back in 2006. It was originally authorized of unfunded of about $800,000, and as of December, you're only paying back about $30,000. You're at $750 still unfunded from a 2006 ordinance. And that was the wild card that I ended up throwing into to Julie's pot to say, okay, well, how are we ever going to pay this piece back?
Which changed these numbers.
Which was what changed the numbers, is I said, okay, we have to bring online another $750,000 that you have to pay back, because that was the TVSA capacity purchase from 2006.
And that generated a lot of discussion, because what makes more sense? Do we issue debt? Can we issue debt? Is it the bond, the tax-free
Well, we've already
market?
issued
or is it
debt
the
on
bond
this.
market?
That one
No,
was
it's an
never
authorization,
issued.
but it's never been issued.
It was never issued. It was authorized, and that was what we referred to as the deferred charge. That was money that was never, ever issued. It's sitting in an unfunded, basically saying we spent it in 2007. By 2007, we spent it, and we've never paid it back. We've never paid for it.
Never raised
But if we issued debt again, we'd be issuing
Sounds
debt
like
again
cheaper.
for debt.
And I went back and forth. That was the length of most of my time spent, was looking at that ordinance and saying, can I issue the debt? And does it make sense to issue the debt this late in the game, 13 years after the fact? Or does it make sense to put you on a plan to pay it off? And when I kept playing with the numbers and we kept looking at these increases, the more I could get it, and speaking with bond counsel and financial advisors, yes, we could sell the debt. The utility could not afford the debt. If
Right.
I
Doesn't
brought
have
that
enough
debt
income,
online for
that's-
the utility, that increase was greater than what we were projecting already. So what we had then had the conversation with Adam and Julie, was that the alternative is, why don't we just build it into the budget through the deferred charges? That way you get the most bang for your increase, and we build it in. Currently, we have it being built in to be paid off by 2028. So
That's coming out of cash, so that's
gonna
realized
come out of
cash from
in
the
the
tax
budget,
base. Right.
which is where I threw Julie's original numbers and Adam's numbers when they sent it to me, and I said, well, what about this piece? And that's where the brakes came on, because there was a piece sitting there. And I mean, we did a lot of research, I know, and Carol was listening to minutes for me back in
See if you can
2006,
find.
2007, to try what was the conversation. I wasn't the auditors. I don't know. I wasn't sure what happened. And we went back and forth, and that's really what happened. And I think it came back to, in 2006, there was some sort of defect in that original ordinance, and that's why the debt had never been issued. And the plan all along was to pay it through the budget. Budgets got tight. It just never got put in the budget. Budget got tight.
So there's two things that are moving. Number one, we have to catch up, and that's X dollars. And then number two, we have to figure out, unfortunately, we're going to have to increase.
Correct.
So is
What are those two numbers?
Oh, it's right here. I can tell you if you want to know those numbers.
Yeah, sorry. I'm a couple minutes late. I do apologize,
Oh, here,
everybody.
I'll show you.
is there a projected date of when
$247?
we may start to stabilize? or-
When you stabilize, yes, I am, with the 3-year phase-in of the rate increase,
This is a 52.
the 2025. By 2025, you really do become stable, and as debt service starts to decline, that's when you see your debt service start to decline. Hopefully by then, 23 is all on board, the revenue's coming in on board for 20, And that's really where we see you stabilize,
So 2025,
is really your stabilization.
I'll be gone by that, don't worry about
But
it.
that's,
But I have the
but that's
rate increase.
only if Route 23 gets the shovel in the ground by next summer.
Not happening.
Yeah, no, I
Come on, let's be real.
I don't think 23 is
So-
going to really start for another 3-4 years.
I don't either.
Right, and then I guess the piece we didn't factor in is the revenue number that might come back in.
What about when we discussed, since we have more capacity, changing that resolution and opening it up to other people? Would that help?
It's more revenue, but it's
minimal.
insignificant when
As long
compared to
as,
the
long as
greater
we're
obligation.
not
As long as we're not paying
borrowing
for
money,
Right,
you know.
it's just increased
That
revenue.
would be a no-brainer. I mean, if we can get 100 people to start paying more sewer
But that's not-
and not costing us any money.
But it's
And there will be a presentation on November
Oh,
12th
handful,
with
but
a
not-
draft plan for the council's final consideration before it's ultimately memorialized moving forward. So
Right.
that's in the works.
My question
Right,
is,
am I making sense?
Right, the reality for that project, for anybody that you want to connect, that falls to them. You don't
Right.
want to pick up those costs in any way for them, which then brings it in as revenue for you as a sewer rent. So if it's 10,000 or 15,000 to connect.
We cannot change where we use that 6 million that's earmarked for. We can't change it where we're going to use it for. We sold the bond.
You sold the bonds under
we have-
Route 23.
Okay.
They're sold
Yeah, but we need-
under Route
right.
23.
We need that money to develop that project.
That's what
else
it
we're
was
just
sold
Really screwing up.
so Valerie, I asked Adam already, in 2020, we're going to have an increase of $208.
Correct.
In 2021, we're going to have a $68 increase, and in 2022, we're going to have a $12 increase. So if you add those up, divided by 3, it comes to $96 a year. Why can't we just do $96 a year rather than $208 the first year?
Why am I, and the reason is
Because
debt
$98
services,
$98 to me
debt
is a lot easier to swallow than
I
$208.
agree, and, I played with the numbers, and the minimalist number I can pull in 2020 is that 200 number, because...
that's because we're not realizing enough
I can't get
income?
debt service. I have to pay off the debt service. I mean, even if I were to say stagger and take the deferred charge and stagger that piece just out of that year, it doesn't play enough into the number because there's such a large debt service payment.
We've staggered it for so long now.
Well, that's what I did, honestly. I played with that number, saying,
Exactly.
start and kick
Go to
the bucket and
2025.
plan.
Just don't answer the phone for a couple months.
Right, but the reality is that debt service payment in 2020 is almost $2 million.
So we really have no
No choice.
Correct? We don't. We don't. So I have to get my stamp out. It's called rubber.
The alternative, which is the alternative nobody wants to hear, is you don't
But
do
there
the
is no
increase.
alternative.
Well, here's the
There
alternative.
technically
You don't
is.
This is the technical answer.
Okay.
You don't do the rate increase.
Okay.
Or you do it at a smaller rate.
Okay.
The utility runs into a deficit. That deficit shifts itself to the general fund to be raised, and now the taxpayer population as a whole
Correct.
is paying for the sewers. So you have septic people in town who will now be paying for sewers for which they have no benefit. By putting the rate increase into the sewer, you keep the cost to those residents who are in the sewer.
Don't you have sewers?
Yes, I do.
So that's the alternative. That's to me is a worse scenario because you don't want residents who are.
All right, for me, $208 increase is nothing.
That's $200
No,
for
it's
the year.
$208 for the year.
For the
It's
year.
nothing. The water rate that we put in is nothing to me, but to a lot of people in this town, it's a lot. And I'm telling you, mark my words, when we get the property taxes going up.
Well, I'll tell you what, right now, we're all going to need to realize that we're going to have to tighten our belt come to 2020 budget and try to keep it as low as possible.
I agree.
You have to.
But we already have the health insurance. We have to deal with.
Health insurance is going to cost us,
Okay, so, I mean, we've been paying cash for a lot of our capital projects, so maybe we're just gonna have to shrink that a little.
Yeah.
We
But,
have to cut back on capital projects.
here's the problem, we cut back, and then the following year, where are we gonna come up with the,
Well, I think, not to get the cart in front of the horse, I think there's a sweet spot with respect to capital improvements. You don't want to fall behind to the point where it costs you more money in the future.
Right.
But that's a bridge, obviously, we're all very cognizant of, and we're already working on budget. We've been working on budget, so it's not something that's being ignored. I think there's a very conservative approach being applied to things. This is the issue we need to confront now, and then the budget we will tackle beginning in November internally, and then it gets transmitted to you in January.
Can I ask
And that's when things are due from departments, and then we have the hearings in November, and then you get a transmitted budget document to you in January. That's the schedule.
You're waiting for 6 more people for the Route 23 sewers. What if you never get that?
So I had a conversation with Mr. Ustek about that, and I think we need to be careful how we approach this in closed session, because it involves potential litigation, but we have a plan.
Okay.
And there is a way for...
We can't force the...
There is a way to be, and we're initiating that plan
Because
to
that's
get
what I'm
off the
saying.
dime.
It seems like we're going to keep incurring debt on a project that
we're not getting any money?
That's why I
we're not
believe
getting any money for, but yet we took the money. Is it normal to take so much money so early?
it's not something I've experienced in the past.
That's what I don't understand.
When was that debt issued?
That debt was issued when we sold bonds in 17.
So we just piggybacked what was
We
the
were
balance
selling
on
bonds.
the
So
village.
why did we
and
do that in 2017?
Was it because we got a great rate?
We had
Just ask that
no,
question.
we were never even, we knew we weren't doing Route
Well, no,
23
we-
for
No, in
years.
17, when we were
We knew
doing
we'd
it, there
after
was...
Village, correct?
We thought it was gonna be in 2018.
We thought it was coming online in 18.
Oh, okay.
And when we were back in 16 and 17, when we were laying the foundation for the bond sale, it truly was going to come online.
The rate is much cheaper back then.
And the rate, right, you were looking at, the rate is, what, 3%? We're at a 3%. It wasn't a fantastic rate, but...
You're not going to get that right now.
Correct. But I really believe, from all of my notes and all of the conversations that we had, the Route 23 project, we should have been already done with the 23 project.
Look it up.
Correct.
We should be collecting
Revenue.
We should be
Rents,
collecting revenue.
Rent.
And also, to counter, is Village was supposed to be at a higher assessment number. There should have been a
Yeah.
higher assessment number. The wild card that I built in-
Percentage of project.
Percentage of the project is still killing us on that piece. But there are some, I tried to, when I put together and we were going through the numbers, was the worst case scenario on the appeals. If the worst case scenario doesn't come to fruition on some of those appeals, I built in for the worst case, because I would never want to have, I was more concerned about coming
Sort of
back
like
and
the
saying,
300,000 that might be coming from CBSA.
I tried to take out the
Right.
possibles and give you the worst case scenario, because I'd much rather say, you know what, we planned our number with $1 million worth of appeals and only 5.
So-
and in fact, it's only going to be 600,000. So there's an extra 4. Maybe that third year we don't have to do. I'd much rather go worst case scenario than come back to the trial 2 years from now and say, you know what, I didn't put enough.
Going forward, when we finally do Route 23, how do we make sure that the mistakes made at the Village aren't made again?
So, the
I
team
don't-
has been having regular meetings. The original project has been slightly changed to account for analyses that were different than what are currently believed to be the case. So we're going to be coming to council with some recommendations to do a potential another ordinance to correct some of the deficiencies.
Right.
There's significant communication between legal, operations, engineering, and design. And like I said, there was certain sections that were approached a certain way. They're now being approached differently because, as Councilman Phelan referenced, there was a perception of economy of scale, which when the analysis is taken to the bottom line, doesn't necessarily play out as it may have been anticipated. So we're amending that project to some extent.
Will we possibly have to go through the whole fighting process again with 23? Or
What process?
It's a much smaller project. It's more commercially based, so you don't have the diversity of property classes. And, it's a $6 million project as opposed to a $16 million project. That's really what it comes down to. Prior to the Village Area project, the assessment projects were limited. 4 million, 2.5 million.
Right.
You know, the village area project kind of grew.
So let me understand this, because we originally said the sewer project was going to be 7.2 million.
Maximum to be assessed.
Maximum to be assessed at 7.
And it ended up costing us 16 million. So
I think the original forecast was around 11.
can we, or should have we increased that number along the way every time we've gotten a job change, a change order?
For the max on the assessment?
Yeah.
If I were to design this from scratch, my recommendation would be that the council come up with a policy decision on what they believe should be the responsibility of the property owners and what they should be the responsibility of the utility. And whether that's a 70-30, 80-20, 50-50, whatever the council decides, that needs to be the policy. If the project expands, then the theoretical answer to that is you would expand the maximum to be assessed to go with the expanded project to maintain whatever that breakdown is. And that way, you don't have a disproportionate amount being assessed to the utility.
So what should have been the amount that we could have been assessed on the sewer, the project in the village?
7.2 was the maximum.
Was
I
the
know,
max, but
but-
had you changed it along the way?
Yeah, so what, right, have we changed it along the way?
Don't know that off the top of my head. I could totally do that research to find out where it was and
no.
when that ordinance.
It's more than the 7.2 then?
It could, right. But that's not how, and I truly believe when that ordinance was originally passed, I'm sure there was probably conversation that a portion of it would be taken on the utility itself. Because the ordinance was originally passed for more than that 7. And it just, the costs spiraled. And it was done in actually 3 pieces. There was several amendments to the ordinance over time.
It sounds like you did a very thorough job.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
I commend you for that, both of you. You did a very thorough job. Unfortunately, we have the ugly job of...
You have the ugly job, and I'm the bearer of the worst news possible.
Right, so you're not going to get the phone call. Dave Cole and Ryan are going to get the phone calls.
Yes.
So
They
just to
made
be
a very
clear-
nice poop sandwich.
So just to be clear, with the village project, we're not backing out anything that's non-village, just to make sure we have the right amount of funds that was designated towards the village. So in other words, when we bought the house to go out to 23, and then now we're putting it back on the market, is that designated part of the village project, or is that amount designated towards the Route 23 project, plus the pumping station that's at the corner of the village, plus
That's all village.
tunneling underneath
All
23?
It's all village.
That's all.
But it's technically...
But the revenue, using the 90 Village Road property as an example, if that is sold and the revenue comes
Yeah,
in,
that
the
would come
revenue
back
will
in.
help the utility as a whole, because again, it's
You're not going to get that.
But no, what I'm saying is, we anticipated it being a $7 or $11 million project, and ended up being 16. But was it truly 16 million for the village? Because we have these other pieces that we went under 23, we bought the house, all to get out to 23. So do we need to
Well,
back
and
off
we
$1 million?
included Newark
All
Pump to
included
Turnpike,
in
we
those-
included a lot of different sections.
That 16, that was the
But we
cost.
bought the house
Like
so we
going
could
up
go to
Turnpike.
spot 23, rather than going
Around.
And then
down the
Ellis.
route. Yeah.
All of those are really, and those costs were then always assumed that would be a cost of the utility as a whole, not an assessed to.
So technically, it's the village project, but the village project wasn't just a village, it was coming up
was
and going
more.
across. Right.
There
okay.
was more involved in that project, and so it's the disproportional of how it's coming on. And so therefore, that's what happened, is that debt was sold.
Right.
But now the users of the sewers have to pay for that debt, for that whole project.
So me as a sewer user are paying for that project.
You're paying for a portion, yes. As a
sewer project.
Julie, as a sewer user, as we've had this conversation, is paying for that project.
No, yeah, you do get charged. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So,
She doesn't get charged
For which-
for water, though. Let's make that point.
not directly, not directly.
What goes in must come out.
But, so she's having no benefit from that project.
Picks up the cost of the
Just make a
project.
point.
Yes.
It's not-
But, like I said, the worst case scenario would be for the people who have septic to be
No, I agree.
assessed the same cost.
Right,
I think
it's
that
not
would be.
fair to, it's not fair to them at all. And
So now,
it's not that much, to me, it's not that much money, but to other people, it's going to be.
Right. And believe me, I look to try and,
There's nothing you can do.
Right.
I tried to scale that first kit to be the least amount that we could make feasible to make the most sense.
We had that conversation, do this in 1 year or phase it
And then I
as
talked
long
about
as
it, do we
possible
rip
to
the
try to
Band-Aid
phase
off? Because, when I was talking
the
to my
least
partners
possible.
in the office, it was, I'm going to do 26 in the first year. Does it make sense to just rip the Band-Aid off and do 34?
Why not?
But I said, I didn't want to do that because if something is in there different, timing of things are different, you have a window of some other time that you have to go back and do a rate reduction. We could say we're not.
I'm sorry, what'd you call that?
Rate reduction.
There's no such thing.
No such thing as a rate reduction, but I would hate for you to take it and not need it, and then be faced with that side of it. So that's why we tried to stagger it to the least amount. So each of the first two of the increases are staggered to make the final debt service payment, so that the debt service and the deferred charges can come online with the plan.
So now the next section of 23, we have $6 million that we already bonded out for.
4 million. 2 million is not bonded.
6 million is authorized, 4 million has been issued.
Issued. 2.1 is factored in right now as a note for you.
From a
Because it wasn't sure.
reality
Put another
standpoint,
debt.
can we get the rest of that project done for $6 million? Or are we going to have to just do it within our budget of $6 million?
We've had,
Had that covered.
Exactly.
yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about that, including with the engineer. The problem is right now, because what they do is, in order to determine that, they go out to other projects and see where they're coming in. They do an analysis. Because of all of the projects going out for lead service line replacements in the urban areas, the cost is through the roof. So you don't have hungry contractors. So we have an artificial bubble in costs associated with sewer work. Because
So you
it's
can't
simple
even-
to do that.
you can't even go out.
So we don't, well, hopefully by next year, a
Yeah.
lot of it's been replaced and people are hungry again, but we can't come up with an honest answer. So the idea that was formulated was we'll put together the project once design is finalized. We'll go out to bid, see what we get back. Hopefully, we have 60 days to award a contract unless we agree to mutually extend that. Hopefully, it comes in where it's something that is within budget. If not, we'll have to come back and have a conversation about what we need to do.
This is a no-win situation. No-win situation.
All right, there's, if anybody else
There's a
has
public
anything.
hearing.
We have public comment, so is everybody all right if I go to public comment?
Yep.
So next on the agenda is public comment. If anyone wishes to address the council, please wait to be recognized. Provide your name and address for the record. Mr. Spazzeri.
I guess me being the only public here, Frank Spazzeri, 35 West Franklin Avenue. I do have sewers, and I was the first ones on sewers. The increase you're talking about, is that everybody that's on sewers or just the village?
Everybody.
And if you do that, I'm moving. Because $208 on top of what I'm paying now, just to put poop into a drain that goes down to Lincoln Park,
Goes downhill.
it's absolutely ridiculous. It really is. And I understand that you're short monies. That's not my fault.
You are correct.
And whoever was here before should have known that, and you guys should have been told that. So don't put it all onus on us out here who are already paying the sewer fees. Just keep that in mind, because there's old people like me in this town that can't afford $208 more a month just to fly.
$30 a year.
It's a year.
A year, whatever.
Yeah.
We're paying too much money for it now. I don't know how you're going to do it.
I don't think we have a choice.
But, and Dave's suggestion, if you say like 97, which is still a lot of money anyway, I might go along with that. But another $208 a year, that's ridiculous. I mean, the water rates went up, and we already raised the sewer,
No, water rate and the meter rate.
and the meter rates went up.
Your property taxes will go up next year.
We haven't had an increase in sewer since
2017, and before that, it was 2010.
That's 2 years ago.
2010 was 740, then it went to 2017, 780.
But again, just
the benefit of-
matter of fact, it can't keep going up.
For the benefit of a response, and just to put it for the record, Mr. Spizzeri, if I told you for the last month, a lot of smart people have done nothing but talk about this. And we tried to come up with another way, and we tried to come up with the best way. And if somebody has a better way, of course, we're all ears. But we've spent a lot of money, and we've done a lot of work to try to get this to be the best thing it possibly can be. And unfortunately, the result is what we have before us.
Oh, I think Ryan had a point, talking about the village. The actual sewers that went in the village is one price that we paid. We paid extra to put the two ducts across to Route 23. We bought the property, we built a building on there for a pump station. All that other stuff, I mean, that's not part of what the original assessment was for the village. I don't care that you put it in on top of it. I do care, because that's not where the money should have come from. Because those people were going to hook up to the sewer, and they were going to pay a certain amount of assessment, and they're going to pay a certain amount monthly to use the sewer. But now they're paying for what's going on to Route 23. And talking about Route 23, a lot of empty properties there. How do you know they're going to build a business there? How do you know they're going to hook up to the sewer? You don't know.
Oh, they have to hook up to the sewer. They'll have no choice, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have businesses moving in there, we're going to get more.
And the question is, how long is it going to take to develop 23 that we can actually be at par?
Right.
It's
How are you going to know that? You don't know that.
years.
Especially if they know that side of the river floods. I mean, you're going to have a lot of problems with that. But anyway, that's my feeling. I just feel like it's too much money. You got to find some other way. I don't know how it's going to be, but
I don't think there is another way.
Unfortunately, for the last 2 years, we found another way, and the can got kicked down the road, and now it's time to pay the piper.
You know, I think we all need to learn a lesson here, because, you know, it hasn't increased from 2010 to 2017. None of us, well, some of us may have been on council, but if we increase things small,
Right.
you know, but each year, instead of waiting and then shoving it up people's, you know, $208, I mean.
But Dave, we were told economy of scale. The more residents that come on is going to pay for this. This is what we were told.
The economy of scale didn't work.
Well, and for the benefit of also the record, if you go back to 2010, between then and now, there's been $20 million
Worth of projects.
authorizations associated with improvements.
Oh, but don't get paid for it, don't worry.
So if you spend $20 million and you don't raise rates, yes, you bring on new customers, but $20 million is a significant sum of money.
plus we pay more to Lincoln Park to use the,
Lincoln Park's going to get slammed because they did not.
They're using more than.
They're using more than what they're paying for. Their rate is artificially low, but what will happen is they're going to end up owing the TVSA $500,000 this year. So their artificial rate's going to come back and haunt them.
I don't know, guys. Work it out. Make it easy. I'm 84. I can't afford much more.
So my question for council is then, professionals, staff, and I need direction in the preparation of an ordinance because we're running out of year.
Well, you can prepare an ordinance, doesn't mean I'll vote yes.
That's fine, but I need
Then I can
direction.
tell you what my answer is.
I need direction from council on where we're going with this, because
Yeah, that's right.
as we
Well,
just
I would-
discussed, we
I would
have.
also like to know, you were going to check on, and we thought it was a 98% chance that it was a no, that we could give some of that money back. and-
I'll send him a message as soon as,
You know, it's-
I'm pretty positive,
I know.
but I just want
So
confirmation.
So am I, but it would be nice to say, we checked every avenue.
Correct.
And if that's
I
the
agree,
last thing we
and
have to do, can we
I
just
will
get
send
that
that
answer?
message
Thank
as soon as
you.
we're done, just to make sure and get you an answer.
Yeah.
But in the interim, we have 2 weeks before the November 12th meeting, you know.
To look under rocks.
Well, listen, we've been looking under rocks
Yeah.
for weeks and weeks and weeks.
So if we come up with nothing else, it's going to be
You have no choice.
$52 a quarter, right? Is that what it comes out
That
to?
is correct.
$52 a quarter.
It's at $988 a year.
So
in 2020,
21% increase.
$1,056 a year in 2021.
Right, but for the first year.
$1,068 in 2022, for a total of a 34% increase spanned over 3 years. The majority of which
21% for
is.
first
But then it stays at the
Right.
1,068 in 2022.
But we can't-
That needs to be
Ryan,
reevaluated.
we can't say that.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's not going
Like
down.
Dave
That's the
said,
problem.
we can't, we have to, because as our costs go up, we have to maybe a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Like you said, we went from 2000 and what was it, Dave?
10.
2010 to 2017.
Right,
without
but
so
not
much
the-
as a dollar raise.
Right, which is ridiculous.
And costs went up because just
How
costs
many,
go up. They
how
don't
many
go
people
down.
will this affect? How many people are connected to sewers?
It's in the outset of the memo.
I was just looking for it.
It's roughly 2,800. There's roughly 2,800 customers.
That's commercial and residential?
Yes.
Yes.
Total bills, 800 customers. So barring anything else being uncovered and confirming the question with bond counsel, I'll ask for an ordinance to be prepared implementing the rate change as articulated in the analysis. Is that my understanding of where we're going?
You have no choice.
No choice.
It's,
Right, but I respect that, but I need
If
direction.
there's no other alternative,
I'm
then
going to
yes.
say yes.
That's what we have.
I mean,
to
again,
do.
I'm not, this isn't done with glee, this is done in an effort to balance the utilities budget. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, ladies.
There being no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned at 6:50.